Uh, Good morning, my fellow Equatorians. This is a message that goes to you. I would like to take this moment to give you a lot of thanks and a lot of word of appreciation. You have shown great civility to humanity and also amongst yourselves. You see, you have held yourselves as Equatorians, group of small tribes collectively brought together. By the way, it takes a very special skill to be able to uphold that. You can imagine the variations of small cultural differences that you have had all this time. You are able to merge it into one and upheld it like that. From since 1913, when the British was able to institute systems amongst you, the Equatorians, that ended up bringing you together. Systems of defense, systems of education, systems of infrastructure, systems of services that has been delivered to you by the British with an intent to bring you together from 1913 to 1927 worked, even though that period is not very long, but it actually worked in holding you together as what is called Equatoria. Thank you very much for upholding yourselves into that and also holding yourself into that. And please make sure you don't allow that fabric to loosen. There are policies that could be implemented that might end up break this fabric to loose. And one of the policies is through fragmenting you into very many states, for example. That could, yes, eventually, as time go by, fragment you into many interests, you see, and eventually make the fabric that ties you together become very loose, you see. And eventually, when that stays for a very long time, especially when it goes generationally, then guess what? The coming generation and the other coming generation will always not see any interest upheld in what is called Equatoria, the level of Equatoria. So Equatoria will seem to be pretty much nominal, all right, something that is by name, but there is no clear constituent that holds it. There is no interest that holds it, and eventually it breaks loose. But thank you for doing all you're doing, upholding some cultural activities here and there, upholding equatorial community activities here and there, and eventually get that taken to the younger ones who are coming, so that the younger ones will not completely fall loose and break what is called Equatorianism apart. It is very important that we should continue to hold it and yes, and recognize ourselves as one, as brothers and sisters. We should also realize something. Besides fragmenting people into many segments, there is also something that could destroy this fabric, and it is the politics of serving either individual interests or serving tribal interest. Usually when you are trying to look at what is called common interest or shared interest amongst the people of the Equatorial region, sometimes there are conflicting interests in the tribal demographics. And if the people of Equatoria take their tribes more of a value in their lives than the the union of what is called Equatoria, then those conflicting interests that are seen within the parameters of those tribes will eventually prevail. And what that would do is it will make people to pretty much align themselves to try to serve those tribal interests so much that they could even compromise the very things that could have actually hold them together as Equatorians, and that is dangerous. That could also make Equatoria lose its fabric. You see what I'm saying? Now, in the event Equatoria loses its fabric, and people tend to uphold themselves into these small segments of these tribal demarcations, it is dangerous because you can easily lose your cultural value if you uphold yourselves into that. You need this Equatorianism first. You need this fence, okay, to uphold you into what is called Equatoria, and then within Equatoria you can freely exercise your cultural values from within what is called Equatoria, without those cultural values being compromised or kind of marginalized into some other culture. Or if this fence, if this what is called Equatoria is no longer existent, and you have all those small tribes amongst yourselves, it is always easy for those small tribes to be easily kind of marginalized or integrated into some other form of culture that might not be of the Equatoria to begin with. You see, because when we talk of our those tribes that come from the Equatoria, when you take a very closer look, we all have what is called variation of our cultures and languages and our norms, within what is called Equatoria. And then when you come to the level of Equatoria, we also have culture that we have developed of the Equatoria, you see. And the culture of the Equatoria is pretty much what we have always seen exercised in around the territory of Juba, okay, during the government of 1972 all the way to, let me say, close to 1995. Well, I've left Juba around 1988, and I've never traveled back since. But I am sure that until 2005, around the time when the CPA was signed, the culture itself around the people there in Juba has not changed much. But as far as now, as we speak now, I am not very quite sure whether it's even close to how it was during those days before I even left in 1988. In fact, yes, Equatoria had established its own culture of all these tribes that came together and formed what is called Equatoria. And you will feel the essence of what is called Equatorianism when you lived in places like Juba, for example, and also when you go to places like Yei, Torit, Mundri, Manatikal, Shwea, Kubar, you will feel the essence of the culture bitanas bita Equatoria. You see, Terigal Arabi Juba Gon Sumo, the slang. There are some slangs that are being said in Juba that sometimes if you go to Yei, if you go to Torit, not very many people will understand. Only very few who have traveled a lot to Juba or lived in Juba a lot. So yeah, all in all, my fellow Equatorians, thank you very much for being Equatorians all this time, and please don't allow, as we are living in these tough times today, policies come in and break you loose. All right, uphold into that, and see yourselves as brothers and sisters at all times. It's very important for the existence of Equatoria. Equatoria should exist the way it is through all the challenges that it's going through today. Thank you very much. God bless you, and I will see you in another video some other time. God bless you.